them as in cars now, whichever get up. Light up my scars with a sweet one bliss. Someone flicks me a bag it up. So, it's another one. It's another one, yeah. It's a full run, yeah. Oh, it's another one. It's another one, yeah.
What's going on, people? Welcome back to the STAYWEIGHEDIN Show. I'm joined with my man Tre today. How you doing, man?
All good, my brother. How's it going on your end?
It's going blessed, man. I can't really complain. Look, we're here to talk about the big breaking news from Canelo and his interview. But before we do, let's just get right to it, actually. Canelo Alvarez comes out. There's the big speculation that there's an interview coming up. A lot of people are saying that he may not necessarily be with PBC going forward. But now he's come out and said that obviously that wasn't the basis of the interview. It's more to do with the fact that he's looking to continue his schedule fighting in May, fighting in September as he does. And apparently the opponent that he's going to potentially be fighting out is Jermall Charlo. A lot of people want the Benavidez fight. And a lot of people are now going to say, Canelo's ducking. I want your view on it. What's your opinion on the fact that is he ducking? Does he have the right to call out the fights that he wants to do now as well?
Yeah, Abbas, you've obviously made some good points. And before I obviously get straight into it, just wanted to just give the community a shout out as well. So obviously big up to Fabian as well. He's saying, what was the announcement? Obviously, Fabian wants to know the announcement, Abbas. So could you just confirm to Fabian what the announcement was actually?
So the announcement was that he's still fighting and he's looking at an opponent. The dates for May and September are still going to happen. By all intents and purposes, he's kind of leaning on Charlo to fight. And also, which we'll talk about soon as well, is the fact that he wants to keep his fights free in Mexico. No matter the fact that the pressure's coming out from people to say we want pay-per-view broadcasters, he wants to keep that free for the Mexican people. So yeah, they were the two little things. A lot of speculation prior to it was the fact that he was going to leave PBC because they can't honor his contract. But basically, he's cleared that all up. But yeah, let's go straight into the conversation then. What's your opinion on Charlo?
Yes, big up Tony Ellis as well. He's obviously saying duck, duck, duck. I think that just says enough. Look, I know it's a disrespect to you because you're a massive Charlo fan, and big up Chris BNG as well. BNG, he's obviously saying he's ducking. That's my co-host from the Boxing Roundup, and he's also confirming that he's fighting easy opponents. Look, we're all gonna have a view on what's going on with Charlo. Not with Charlo, with Canelo. It's a tough one. I know you're a fan. I'm a massive fan of both guys. People know that we've got the lights on there as well. For me, Benavidez is in a similar situation to Dylan White. I don't know if you remember when he was mandatory for Tyson Fury's belt for quite some time. I don't know what a man has to do, really. He's fought, Plant. He had that fight with Andrade, another fighter that, you could say Canelo didn't want to fight, but Benavidez has gone in there with them, and he's done everything possible to lead up this fight with Canelo. It is a bit of a disappointment that fight's not happening next, but it looks like, Canelo wants to do the family affair. He's taken out the Smiths, he's taken out the Cottos, and I guess he wants the Charlos next. In his sort of portfolio of fighters, and Saudi needs to get involved. It's true. What are you saying?
This is the thing. I've said this about Saudi and just in general about Canelo. I think people are now disrespecting Canelo because he's put himself in the position where he can make the fights. And you're chasing him. He's not chasing nobody. And I don't think Saudi really need to get involved here because it's Canelo Alvarez. So what I mean by that is he will always fight the best at one point or another. It's not like a Tyson Fury where it's like we can potentially think he can run away into the sunset type of thing and not fight. He will fight Benavidez, but you have to respect him. And if you don't respect him, then why should he give you that opportunity? You can earn whatever you want, but this is Canelo Alvarez. And again, I'll bring this point because we used to talk about the fact that he should fight Charlo. We need to see him fight Charlo, etc. Now that he's fighting Charlo, people are saying he's ducking. So it's like, what point does what does he have to do to satisfy everybody? Because once he beats Benavidez, what is he going to do? They're going to say he's going to have to fight Bivol. He's going to have to do this. Like, is the Charlo allure gone as well because of how long Charlo was away from boxing to you?
Yeah, you know what? I just had this conversation with BNG, like off air. We obviously have conversations about boxing on a consistent basis, and one of the things that I did mention is that before Charlo's sort of situation in the past, he's been sort of inactive in a ring, and at that moment when Jamel took the fight over obviously his brother, I felt that that would have been a better opportunity for his older brother to fight Canelo, because I felt that at the time he was more active, he was sharper, and mentally he was in a different place. Now I'm not too sure, but if you want to talk about weights, I think he's closer in weight with Canelo than Jamel was sort of moving up. But I'm not saying that in the sense of normal weight. I'm saying in terms of fighting weight. He obviously fought at a higher weight, so he's more used to fighting at that weight, other than he's obviously his brother Jamel at the time.
This brings me to this comment. Sorry, I'm just going to bring it up here. Crawford smokes Canelo. I'm sorry. Like, we just touched on there about the weight divisions and moving up. We saw Jamel Charlo going up 2 weight classes. Crawford, albeit he's at 147, and we think, look, logically he needs to go to 154 anyway.
Yeah,
he doesn't smoke Canelo because the difference in that weight class, and then you're not just fighting a baby at 168, you're fighting the king of 168. And this is what I mean when I look at Canelo. I'm like, the longevity of Canelo, and then the fact that he's only got a few more big name fights, I think there's a lack of disrespect here, because unfortunately I can't see a guy moving up from 147, albeit he's a 154 fighter, straight making that jump, and then people expecting him to be able to smoke Canelo. What's your view on this Crawford Canelo potential conversation?
You know what? I know a lot of fans generally want to see Crawford fight Canelo. Reason being because Crawford deserves these kind of fights next. You know, after doing the fight with Spence, it was a tremendous showing. He obviously earned a certain amount in that fight. So he feels at this stage of his career, it's only big fights moving forward. And the next big fight for him is a Canelo. For me, and I'm going to repeat again, I would rather Canelo fight Benavidez because he's at his weight and he's more deserving to fight Canelo than a Crawford, respectfully, because he's been mandatory for quite some time. And I think he deserves the fight over Crawford. So if I was to choose which one I would prefer, you know, I'm going for the Mexican Monster, El Monstro. And big up Bukayo Saka as well. I know you're going to read his comment, Abbas.
Yeah, I was going to say, just before we get into that conversation, because there's a point on Canelo, I just want to shout out our sponsor as well, D-Rock Clothing, as we always promote them as well. Look, if you guys want 40% off, head on to the website, type in the promo code iBoxingHub24, get yourself 40% off, enjoy the goods as well, and then support the channel. But yeah, let's go into this comment. How many fights do you think Canelo has left in him? And it's interesting because he indicated he wants to fight for another 5 years.
Okay.
Up to 5 years. 2 fights every fight, 2 fights a year. That works to about 10 fights. Considering he's had 60 plus fights, do you think that's realistic that he can do that? Because personally, for me, I don't know. But he's the greatest boxer I'll ever watch personally. So if anybody can do it, it's him. And at what point does he slowly slow down in terms of his career right now?
No, that's a very, very good point. And thank you so much for highlighting that. And big up Bukayo Saka as well. It's a very good question to ask. And I think, Abbas, you answered it perfectly. I think he can definitely do it. But would he stay at 168 for long, you know, after a few fights there? I'm not too sure. If you want to challenge yourself, you know, as a competitor, which I know he is, I call him personally El Presidente because he's El Presidente of boxing right now. He's the top. He's the face of boxing. So he can make whatever decisions he wants, essentially. But I just want to see him fight El Monstro. I want him to see him fight the Mexican Monster. I'm hoping this year it still happens, you know, after Charlo and then. But it would have been ideal for me. It would have been ideal for Canelo to fight El Monstro in Cinco de Mayo. That would have been perfect. But maybe for 2025, like you said, that could be the date that everyone's sort of looking forward to. And I'm hoping that next Cinco de Mayo it is for, you know, Benavidez and Canelo, because we need to see two of the arguably the best Mexicans. Obviously, Canelo is number one, but we need to see the two clash it out at the end of the day.
We got this comment here as well from Lucy. Big up Lucy as well, tuning in. I don't want to see Canelo versus Jamal. Canelo Jamel ruined it for me. It does seem like it's that consensus that, look, we love Canelo, but we love him to a point where unless you're making the fight that we want, we're not gonna tune in. So my point to you is, because of the times that Canelo fights being that so late in the UK, do you think if and when this potential fight gets confirmed in May, there's going to be quite a few eyes that are not going to be drawn to it as much as like DAZN will probably assume it will be, or an Amazon, for example, because of PVC?
Yeah, we'll still tune in, Abbas. Let's not
You're right.
kid ourselves. It's El Presidente. I'm not going to lie to you. This is one of the reasons why I'm a massive fan of El Presidente, is because whenever he fights, it's a Mexican event. When Canelo's fighting, he brings the people. He's the face of boxing. He's the man that's carrying the sport. So whenever he does participate in one of these fights, regardless of the opponent, you know he's going to bring a tremendous entrance. I remember you mentioned that his last entrance against John Ryder was absolutely tremendous. I agree with you. We'll still tune in. I know as a fan, I'm a fan of Canelo as well. I'm not saying this as not a fan. I'm a fan of him. I call him El Presidente. I'm just a bit upset as a fan that we're not seeing the Benavidez fight next. But I will say we're still going to tune in. It's Canelo at the end of the day. He brings the same Mayweather effect, I would say.
I want to read this comment because I love this comment from Rico. Canelo's going to have wins on his record back-to-back Viva Mexico. That's what I like. Do you know what? You clean the family, leave no stone unturned, as they like to say, and stuff like that. And again, as I said before, because it's Canelo Alvarez, we know we will always get the fights that we want from him. Gets rid of the Charlos, completes them. Now, I will say this. If he fights Munguia over Benavidez, I'll be a little bit disappointed. I'm not disappointed about this particular fight being with Charlo personally. Sticking with Canelo again, and we touched on the start of the topic where he said he wants to continue to fight in Mexico or have the fights in Mexico for free. Now, considering how much of a story he is, how important is it that Mexico has their grand star being able to be broadcasted for free over there?
Very important. He is the grand star, like you mentioned, and I don't think it's a bad thing that he's saying this. It's just giving the Mexican fans easier access. And you don't know what's going on in the back end in terms of the planning, the strategic thinking behind doing these fights for free. Because when it's the Benavidez versus Canelo, if that does happen, and it is happening in Mexico, hopefully, then this will be hopefully free for the Mexicans to enjoy a big event. All the legends will be there to promote it, of course. And look, that's the fight that I want to see. But I do agree with you. It's not a major disappointment that he's fighting Charlo, because in theory, Charlo is a better competitor in terms of weight than his twin brother. And I think it would be more competitive because he's a lot stronger, I would say, and he's more used to the heavier weight. We obviously saw, you know, his previous fight on the undercard. But look, Abbas, he was on the undercard as well for the Benavidez fight as well. So it's just, I just don't know, man. I just don't know.
Just before we move on to domestic boxing, got to read this comment again from Rico. Shout out Rico, man.
Big up, brother.
Canelo giving Benavidez some time to live, which is gracious of him. Benavidez will get hurt very badly by Saul. So I think that as well. Like, I always look at this as well. When you fight someone like Canelo and you are hyped to beat that guy. But when you lose, the regression in your career, like you have to take a step back and look within yourself to think, where can I go next? And I think what it allows Benavidez to do here, it still gives him that career platform, if that makes sense, because you're still chasing the guy and no one knows the outcome. Whereas if you fight him and you lose, like, where do you go next type of thing? And I personally would expect Benavidez to lose to Canelo as well. So I think it doesn't necessarily stall his career. It continues his career because at the end of the day, he still has that fight luring in the background. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. Look, Rico is a massive Canelo fan like yourself. I'm a massive fan of Canelo, but I'm also a massive fan of El Monstro. I definitely think that he is.
I've seen the meme that you guys have on the chat.
You've seen like our WhatsApp groups are just, it's legendary. If anyone was just a fly in the wall to see what happens there, it's manic. But look, I just think that regardless, and L doesn't define a fighter. So if Benavidez was to lose that fight, which I don't think will happen, but if he was to lose, it won't affect his career at all. He's still got other fights. He's got still other opportunities as well. But my question to you, Abbas, is how long does Canelo still fight in that super welterweight, super middleweight? Is he going to continue to defend his titles? Because look, he's top of the tree right now in that weight division, and he's defended his titles a few times. I'm thinking, if you want to challenge yourself, get back up to like heavyweight, fight Bivol again, fight these guys again.
I think 2025, we see the end of Canelo at 168, unless there is someone that comes out of the blue between now and May 2025 that's like, okay, there's your new challenger. Right now, for me, I don't see it make sense for him to want to push up to light heavyweight because, obviously, like we said, we've seen the Bivol fight beforehand. I believe he also fought Kovalev beforehand anyway, so he's made that transition beforehand as well. So he's won at that weight class as well. And I think Kovalev was a great starting block for him. Then I think he went that step too far to dare to be great. Unfortunately, backfired a little bit. But I think once he cleans house, being Benavidez, and I think that will be next year personally. I think then, we may well see the move up to 175. Again, if he wants to make the 5-year thing that he's saying as well, it all depends on his body. I think that's another big thing as well. Like how much of a struggle is it really for you to make that 168 weight? Because I think as long as he's comfortable and he continues to win, fight with ease, I think you might see him. Personally, for me, I think we might see it next year once he completes his Benavidez fight. Let's just read a few more comments. Like we said, move on to a bit of domestic action. Benavidez is 27 years old. He's had more than enough time to bounce back. Probably at 175 if he was to lose to Canelo. Do you think Benavidez?
Big up to Lucy. This is why, like, big up to Lucy because she's obviously giving her view from the US perspective. And look, I think that's a good point. If he was to lose to Canelo, he could still go up to 175, like what Lucy's saying. And I think by that time he does move up, the belts would have been fragmented. So there is an opportunity. So you could see the likes of Yard, all these guys potentially fight Canelo and Benavidez. So I think this would be a good fight.
Interesting one here. Canelo is actually trying to find Makabu or Badu Jack at cruiserweight. I think that's hard for me, but if he was giving that a go back in the day, it's a stretch personally at cruiserweight for me, but I see it. Just a quick one here then, actually, since we are going to move on to domestic. I want to see Canelo fight in the UK, but who would give him a decent fight? I'm not sure personally at 168.
It would have to be 175, I reckon. He has to fight one of the either Yard, Buatsi. I think he's going to have to look at those fights. And I think potentially if Canelo was to fight in the UK, even at a catch weight with one of these guys, just as a introduction to the UK, definitely, I think that would be a good potential one. Who'd you put him up against?
I think I'm with you because I look at 168. I mean, 168, and there's not anybody that stands out for me. But then once you make that little leap up, there's a lot of domestic guys. And again, this is where I said there's no shame in taking a fight and potentially losing, because at the end of the day,
Abbas, I've actually got a heads up. Actually, what about Eubank? What about Eubank?
So this is where we go to Eubank next. So let's actually skim straight into it. You got Hamza Shiraz, and this is where Eubank comes into it for me as well.
Yes, go for it. Yeah.
Yard KOs Canelo. Sorry, Bukayo.
Lions in the camp.
Well. So I can't follow through with that. That's just
Lions in the camp, man. Come on.
That's just not happening. That's just not happening. But yeah, as we were saying, if we touch on Hamza Shiraz here,
tremendous performance.
Very, very impressive performance over the weekend, beating Liam Smith, first round stoppage. And just quickly, have Queensberry got a new superstar, potential superstar on their hands with this guy?
Yeah, Hamza's definitely, he's talented. He's got the power. He showed a lot of good composure as well. He's like Yard, you know, from Ilford, East London. So he's definitely got my backing as well. And I think the potential is looking good as well. And I think that was a good test for him as well, because I actually sent Liam Williams a message before the fight, actually, just wishing him luck. I felt that his experience, you know, would cause some problems. But it just seemed like, you know, Hamza just took this fight, you know, in its stride, and he just produced a tremendous performance. Are we potentially seeing the end of Liam Williams potentially? Is this the end of the machine, or was this just he came up against a young, hungry fighter that, you know, wasn't going to lose this fight, especially a statement fight as well?
I'd probably say that. I think based off the way the fight went, I think we're seeing the end of Liam Williams, like you said. But this brings me to my point about Chris Eubank Jr.
Ooh.
I think this is a great fight to make between both guys who are at a level where one's more ascending than probably the other. And Chris Eubank being the guy that needs another fight before we can say, okay, let's get you into the world title picture-ish. And I think Hamza Shiraz is that guy to get that fight going on. What's your take on that? And then, like, look, we've got loads of comments coming in. We've got Chris versus UK.
We've got Canelo versus Hamza in the UK. Oh, cuz.
Chris versus Hamza, Canelo versus Hamza in the UK. I'm down for that.
Yes, I'm down for that.
Hamza Shiraz, Adam Azim taking the torch from Amir Khan. I like that. We've got, look, Williams said after the fight he sparred with the likes of Ben Whittaker. It's the best he's trained and just felt short on the night. Potentially he could continue on then. But let's go with that as well. Like, what's your opinion on the fact that we could get that as a domestic fight going forward?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. If I'm putting my boxing hat on, and if I was a manager or promoter, I think from a boxing perspective, it makes sense. But as you know, Chris seems like he's on the trail to, you know, wanting to be a world champion. So I'm hoping, you know, the next fight is either a world title shot or a fighter that's going to take him to that stage. Essentially, if it's a Hamza Shiraz, I would absolutely love it. If not, I won't be too upset if Junior doesn't fight Hamza. But from a boxing perspective, I think it makes sense. It's the best fight he can do domestically right now. And if he was going to pick anyone to fight domestically, I think that's the right choice. But it seems like he wants to become a world champion. And if it's not a world title shot, I'm sure he's going to try and get Canelo in the UK at some point as well.
I was going to say for Hamza then, because we've got this Queensberry 5v5 thing that's looking with Matchroom. Who would you pair him up with Matchroom if they were going to take that into Saudi Arabia?
It's pretty tough. So Matchroom's middleweights right now. What options do you really have? Give me a few options in terms of Matchroom's middleweights.
Let's have a look. I'm just bringing them as we speak right now. Is there any, like, there's Felix Cash is possibly the only one. Yeah, looking at them, there's not anything that screams.
Williams for Matchroom. Yeah, Lucy did mention this before. Williams, I think, Yeah, that would make sense for Hamza Shiraz. If they're going to do a 5-3-5, that would make sense. But off the top of my head, it's going to be pretty tough. Obviously, FK Breeze is saying Felix Cash. Big up to FK Breeze as well. Felix Cash. So it looks like either Felix Cash or Amma Williams. The middleweight division isn't the best right now, especially in the UK. I definitely agree. I think this is why, the fact that it isn't the best right now, this is why as a fan, I want to see Eubank conquer it, man. Like, I know there's some tough competitors, especially Janubek, who's obviously holding 2 of the belts, but you've got Lara, who's holding 1 of the belts as well, and you've got who's holding the who's holding the other belts. So it's Lara holding 1 of them, Janubek is holding 2 of them, and then there's 1 more.
I'm trying to think from the top of my head, but yeah, I think Lara sees probably a fight that Eubank would like. But final little topic we're going to talk about, and it's our boy Teofimo Lopez.
The takeover. No, big up the takeover, man. I'm a massive fan.
Takeover, but falling out of the pound for pound rankings. Look, some people criticize the performance. I understand why they criticize it, but I think they overly criticize his performance on Thursday night, Friday morning, however you want to look at it. What's your feelings on the takeover? Because I have mine, but I want to get yours first.
Yeah, my views from the takeover. So I'm gonna try just take off my fan hat and just be very sort of critical in terms of the performance. I feel that it wasn't his best performance, but remember, styles make fights, and it takes 2 to tango as well. It was clear that Ortiz didn't come to fight, whereas Teofimo Lopez was showing the judges that he was taking center of the ring, and he was always walking Ortiz down and trying to, you know, be the person that's being the aggressor. Remember, he's the champion. Ortiz should be coming to the champion. Ortiz should have made more of an effort to take the belts off the champion than Lopez doing what he did on his end. He was the aggressor. Lopez looked like he was the only fighter that really wanted to scrap. Because if you look at the interviews beforehand, Ortiz was giving it all the mouth. He ripped the poster, you remember? So that kind of energy, surely that's telling the fighter that, look, we're going to have a scrap here. And it just ended up not being the case. So I watched the fight a few times. I definitely, at one point when it was like round 10, I had the fight level. But then I think that Teofimo took the last 2 championship rounds, which I felt that Ortiz needed to take those 2 championship rounds, which he didn't do against Lomachenko to win the fight. And I felt that he failed to do so. So a lot of people are critical because of how the takeover is, his character, his nature. But look, Bukayo Saka, I'm going to let you read that.
I was just agreeing with you because I saw when I saw the fight, I saw the same thing. Ortiz forgot he was a boxer, thought he was a runner.
Exactly.
We got Neutralia say Tio will struggle at the test. What I was,
I know Neutral's lighting up the fire right now. He's lighting up the fire.
What I will say is, I've said this about Teofimo Lopez, is when he goes into a fight where he's the favorite, you may not necessarily get that Teofimo Lopez that the favorite in a fight would expect. And it may look a lot less smoother, a lot more crisper. But then when he goes into a fight as the underdog against, not Cambosis, against Lomachenko, against Taylor, you'll see a Teofimo Lopez. You're like, where is this guy in the fight before? Where is this guy? And I think it comes with, I'm just going to get this comment out because this is there. I can take this. In the last few fights, there's a lack of consistency with Teofimo Lopez that then puts a doubt on people. But I do look at Teofimo Lopez and I'm like, you won everything at 135. You then beat the guy that's the lineal champion at 140. Like, as a resume for Teofimo Lopez, it's very, very impressive. And I think a lot of people don't respect the fact that the resume is extremely impressive for the age and the time frame that he's been able to do this in as well. Just a quick comment on this. He could lose to Haney. I think this fight is a lot more closer than people assume. Because, again, as I mentioned before, with the mindset that Teofimo Lopez, for me, I think it's a lot more on the mind when it comes to Teo, because he's never doubted his boxing ability in my eyes. But I remember his first fight at 140, and the camera panned to him, and he said something along the lines of, "Do I still have it?"
Yep.
And for me, that's more of a mindset thing. When he gets an opponent such as a Devin Haney, someone where he has to raise his level to, the mind just switches, and he's in the zone. What's your opinion if this particular fight, or when this fight eventually does happen?
It's the fight that needs to happen. I want to see the takeover fight the dream. I want to see the takeover also fight Mateus. And the reason why I want to see these fights is because it's for the unification. It's for belts. And yes, a lot of people could say the performance, but look, the man defended his title. He's still lineal. And I'm just hoping that, you know, his next upcoming fights, I believe his next fight's in Honduras, in his, you know, motherland. I'm hoping that the next few fights is with a Haney, is with a Mateus, so that he could state his name as number one. I think he wins. I think out of all of them, he is number one. But based on his performances, you can argue he lacks consistency. So I do agree with Stephen. But I do definitely feel, and I agree with you, that it depends on the opponent that he's fighting as well. So for me, I don't really blame Teofimo for the performance that happened over the last week. It was more Ortiz didn't come to fight though, Abbas, man. That's the thing. If you're a challenger and you're fighting for a title, come on, you have to throw more than two punches, man. You gotta get active. You gotta, in a way, you kind of have to sway the judges with what you're doing in the ring. It doesn't even have to be the footwork. Just show you're in the center of the ring. Throw a few combinations. Get those last few shots in the last 10 seconds of the rounds. Like, show that you want to become champion. And even at the end as well, he wasn't really debating that whether he won the fight or not. That's why it was just a bit of a disappointment, because I think he knew that those last 2 rounds, he needed to have taken them, because he made the same mistake and error against Lomachenko in the previous fight. So it's more on Ortiz. I don't really blame Lopez too much for what's happened. He's still the champion. He still, can get these fights against Haney and Mateus, to unify the division. And I think that's definitely on the horizon for sure.
Listen, we've got a lot of comments coming in, so the conversation is still going. But we're going to have to wrap up today's episode of the Stay Weighed In Show. Listen, guys, even though we're wrapping up, that doesn't mean the conversation ends. So drop all your comments in. We'll be looking through and we'll be replying. But before we wrap up, as we always do as well, just a quick shout out again to our sponsor. Sorry, I just got a tickle. Do you want to say it? I've got a tickle in my throat. Just hit the sponsor.
It's Canelo. It's the news of Canelo that's made you do that, man. Don't worry.
I'm back. D-Rock Clothing. Head over to this site. Type in the promo code iBoxingHub24. Get yourself 40% off. Trey, appreciate you for filling in for Ray as well. Listen, we always say this, we're a big family. So if one man goes down, the other man steps up, or woman in Aisha's case as well. But yeah, as always, guys, look, drop in more comments. We'll continue the conversation in the comments below. But until next time, guys, love and peace and stay weighed in.
It's another band. All the Muslim cars now, whichever get up. I start my scars with a sweet one, please.